Good morning and welcome to Valley Focus. I'm your host, Deborah Luray. Christie Lynch is with us this morning. She is a trustee for Pinal County for Concerns of Police Survivors, otherwise known as COPS. Good to have you.
Good morning, Deb. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I know I got you out of bed early and had you drive all the way up from CG, from Casa Grande, but thank you for coming by to share your story with us this morning and to tell us what COPS is all about. First and foremost, let's talk about your story, if you don't mind.
My husband was Sergeant Tate Lynch with the Casa Grande Police Department. He was conducting SWAT exercises in Florence, Arizona on October 25th, 2007. There was an accident with the ropes that he was using, and
was he climbing a wall or climbing?
They were rappelling.
Okay,
I'm sorry,
so they were coming
down.
down.
They were rappelling down the wall at the prison just for exercises. They were actually testing new recruits, and he went down, and something malfunctioned with the ropes and with the equipment, and he fell very rapidly and hit his head on a steel picnic bench below and died from his injuries.
Oh my gosh. And this was during a training exercise.
Yes, they were. It actually was a testing. They were testing new recruits for the SWAT team. He was a member of the SWAT team, and they had done the PT portion. They had done some of the gas masks portion, the shooting, and all that. And that they were at the rappelling portion later in the afternoon, and that's when he fell. And they weren't. He hit his head, and they administered medical help right away there at the prison, but he was later pronounced brain dead up at Scottsdale Osborne.
So they life flighted him from Florence all the way to Scottsdale Osborne. In the meantime, you're home or you at work?
Yeah, actually we were on fall break. The kids and I had slept in. I hadn't even seen him that morning.
Because he got out of the house before you
got out of the house. He left at around 4 a.m. with another officer, and so I didn't even see him. The kids and I were on break. So we were sleeping in. We went Halloween costume shopping. It was October 25th, so we were getting Halloween costumes and just kind of running errands. And that was actually, our cell phones were very new to us then. Imagine that, back in 2007, that I had actually just gotten a cell phone. And
I'm sure that the cell phone service, especially in portions of Pinal County, are sporadic at best.
Well, no one even had my phone number except for Tate, and I didn't text anyone. I don't think we even knew how to text back then, did we? No, I didn't know how to. I didn't know how to. And whenever I had gotten home, it was shortly after lunch. And my phone rang, and it was the number.
Your cell phone or the house phone?
No, the cell phone, which was very surprising to me because, again, nobody had that number because we had a home phone with a regular answering machine and all that.
The old-fashioned guy.
The old-fashioned answering machine.
Rotary dial. Kidding.
No, it was a cordless phone.
I was teasing.
But it was the police department's phone number, and
so you see it show up on your caller ID.
Yeah, and I thought it was him.
Checking
Maybe
in
he had gotten back to the police station earlier than they had thought. So I answered it, and it was the chief of police, and he said there was an accident and he was going to come by. I said okay, because in all of my police wife training, if they don't come by your house in a car, if they just call, everything's okay. If they show up at your door,
so there's protocol.
There is usually if they show up at your door and they haven't called, then someone has died.
Then you need to be concerned.
And so they said he's had an accident and he fell, and I told my kids, hey, I'm going to go up to the hospital. Your dad just fell. Maybe he has a broken leg.
How old were the kids at the time?
They were 6, 8, and 10.
Okay.
So they said, okay, and they went with some friends of mine, and they stayed the night at their house. And
so in the meantime, you shoot up to Scottsdale.
I went up to the hospital, and we waited around for a while. His injuries looked really bad. He was never conscious when I got up there. And it wasn't until maybe 10 o'clock that night that they came and told me they had done some brain scans and that he had no brain activity. So I talked to the organ donor network and donated his organs and signed all the paperwork for that. And then I left. and that was.
Was the chief with you, or were you by yourself?
Oh no, my family came up
Okay.
from Tucson, so there was actually a lot of people there. If you've ever seen any of the officer. Anytime
We've
an
been
officer's
exposed-
shot,
yeah.
and you see him on the news, and there's hundreds of people outside the waiting room.
We got exposed to
was-
that earlier this week with Officer Mendoza.
Right.
And that head-on collision on the I-10, on that flyover on the I-10 earlier in the week. So we saw all of the police cars that were lined up.
Right.
at
So
the medical
literally there's
center.
hundreds of people, but they weren't all with me. They were actually in the waiting room, and I didn't really even know who was there. I was just in the ICU room.
Well, you're numb.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
numb and you're shocked and you're overwhelmed, I'm sure.
Right.
And, when it comes to organ donation, you only have X amount of window time.
Right.
So I would imagine that you were just overwhelmed. I don't even know how you could have thought straight, to be honest with you.
Right. I had never discussed organ donation with my husband. At 36 years old, he would never have dreamed that was going to be an issue. Actually, most officers don't really like to talk about their own death because it's almost like putting a jinx on themselves, and they don't even like to talk about it.
Sort of like when somebody makes the cover of Sports Illustrated. That's a jinx too,
right?
right?
It's a jinx. And so I would ask him about life insurance or about
And he's like,
his
Christie,
funeral.
I don't want to talk about that. Stop.
Right. He's like, why? You think I'm going to die? Do you think I'm going to die? No, I don't think you're going to die. So, it's not something you discuss, but it certainly came to the forefront that day. And
How long had he been with the force?
he had actually become a police officer in 1998. So he was on
So 10 years.
for about 10 years. We started in Holbrook, Arizona, and we're there for a couple
Nice
of years.
quiet up there.
Yeah, actually, it's a kind of a rough little town.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Little cowboy town?
The reservation is right there, and there's
Oh.
a lot of people that come into Holbrook that don't actually live there, that cause a lot of trouble.
So you figure, okay, we're going to move to nice, quiet Casa Grande.
Well, we moved to Casa Grande because we wanted. Tate always wanted to work a big city. Actually, he had always wanted to work in Tucson or Phoenix, like Maryvale District or whatever the worst.
So he was
district
a rough and tumbler guy.
Yes, he wanted to work wherever the bad guys were. That's where he wanted to be. And
Wow.
we actually settled in Casa Grande mostly because it was a little better for our family, and it was close to our family in Tucson.
Kind of halfway point.
Yeah, it was a good place for
And
us.
in 2007, Casa Grande was actually starting to really explode and build up.
Right. It actually
it was
was
a-
right at the what 05, 06 was the
That was the
boom,
boom.
years, and 07 actually when he died was about the beginning of the recession. So he really never saw the recession. It was when housing prices were starting to come down.
Yeah, but they hadn't bottomed out yet.
Oh no, they were just starting to decline. So he really never he died right before all of that happened.
How long was Tate with SWAT?
He was with SWAT about 2 or 3 years.
Did he like it?
Oh, he loved it. Yeah, he loved it. Like I said, he was wanting to get wherever the bad guy was, that's where he wanted to be. He had actually been in 2 officer-involved shootings where he unfortunately had to shoot and kill a suspect. And he had been shot at several times. He had been stabbed. I remember one night he came home. He worked the midnight shift, and he came home, and there was a little piece of paper on the counter that just said puncture wound. I thought, puncture wound? What in the world is that? When he woke up later, because he was sleeping, he sleeps during the day. When he woke up later, I said, what does this mean? And he said, oh yeah, I got stabbed last night. I said, well, why didn't you tell me that? And he said, well, I didn't want to wake you up. So, okay, we have a new rule. If you get stabbed, you need to come wake me up.
If anything happens, you need to come and wake me
If
up.
you get stabbed, shot.
So he just like blows his stuff off like so matter of fact, and
Well, he didn't want to wake me up.
that's incredible. That is incredible. Christie Lynch is with us this morning. She is a trustee for Pinal County when it comes to COPS, which is Concerns of Police Survivors. What has COPS done for you since your loss?
COPS has been my lifeline. They actually, when Tate died, I had never heard of COPS. I had no idea what they did, and he died in October. And that next February, I get a packet in the mail for Police Week, and I get a call from Concerns of Police Survivors that says that they're going to hold a meeting to show me how to fill out all this paperwork for Police Week. I had never heard of it.
And you're thinking, wait a minute, what's Police Week?
I had
and what's
never
all this
heard
paperwork?
of it. Never heard of it. There actually are a lot of people that go as officers, current officers. They maybe haven't experienced a death. They know about Police Week. They just go there to honor other officers. I personally had never heard of it.
So Police Week is a national week when it comes to cops, which is a national organization. We have an Arizona chapter, right? And you're a trustee for the Pinal County portion of cops.
Right.
So you get all this paperwork, and I guess we should definitely let folks know that Police Week just happened to wrap yesterday.
Right.
But it happens every year, and it just wrapped yesterday. And unfortunately, I couldn't get you in the studio soon enough so we could talk about it coming up. So now we have to talk about it wrapping up.
Right.
But when you finally get this notification, like, hey, here's all this paperwork and stuff, was it to bring your family to?
Right. And I had no idea what I was supposed to do. And I go to this meeting and they tell me that not only does my family, me and my children, have to travel to D.C., Washington, D.C., but I'm supposed to bring my mom and dad, Tate's mom and dad, his siblings, and I have to have an escort officer, and there's coworkers that can go. And
Oh my gosh!
And I am completely overwhelmed. And
So how many people in this entourage?
I can't even remember how many we had. It seemed like there were about 20 of us that
Oh my
checked in at
gosh.
the airport to go.
And this is all to go to National Police Week in
all
Washington,
to go to
D.C.
National Police Week. Yeah.
Wow. So this was basically to honor your husband.
Right.
That's who they were going to recognize at Police Week. But people from all over the country are coming in, right? Families from all over the country are coming in, not just Arizona.
Right. They have all states, all officers, and that year it was all officers who died in 2007.
So it's the preceding year. So in other words, just now, yesterday wrapped up Police Week, basically recognizing two families from 2013.
Right.
So
the
for
Huffman
next
and the
year,
Rates. Yeah.
For next year, I would imagine that probably Hobbs and the Mendoza families will be recognized, I would hope. And I hope it stops there, right?
Right.
Okay, so you go to D.C., and what happened?
Police Week is an amazing experience. There really are hardly any words for it. I've never seen so many police officers in one place in my entire life. And they are so honoring and so attentive to the families. It really is overwhelming. Concerns of Police Survivors, they team up with the Fraternal Order of Police, and they put on this on May 15th every year. They have a national memorial service. Oftentimes the president speaks. The year I went, President Bush actually had some peace talks that he had to get to in Israel. So they had another member of the White House staff come and do the keynote speech. But usually President Bush would be there personally. President Obama will be there personally. And they give the keynote speech. They meet the families. It's really a big deal.
How did the kids react to this?
The kids my kids were very disappointed that they weren't going to meet President Bush. They had told all of their friends that they were going to meet the president, and at school, and when they came back, they were just sobbing because they weren't able to meet him. But they had a really good week. I remember my daughter, who was 10 at the time, came up to me with one of her little friends because they have a 2-day camp that the kids can go to at the FBI Academy in Quantico and the Fairfax County training facility. They do all kinds of cool stuff with the kids. And my daughter, Kayla, comes up and says, Mommy, I want you to meet my friend. Her dad drowned. And she was so excited about this. And I thought, okay, that's great, honey. But to her, it wasn't that this girl's dad had drowned, but that there was another person who was like her.
Right. They had this camaraderie. They had this
Yes.
common thread between the two of them, so
Right.
they could relate to each other.
Right.
So you're there for the week. They have all kinds of festivities and activities and different things. You said that COPS has camps. Do they have different camps that they do here in the state as well as out of state that the families get to enjoy and participate in?
Yeah, Concerns of Police Survivors on a national level has camps for all types of survivors. That's one
So
thing
like
that
spouse camps.
yeah, there's one thing that
camps for the children.
that makes COPS unique in that they actually serve all survivors. So they serve in-laws, parents, siblings, adult children, teenagers, children under the age of from 6 to 14. They have a separate camp. Spouses have a camp. Co-workers have a camp. So all categories of survivor actually have a camp or a retreat that they can go to with people like them.
Like your daughter.
Right. And
So is there any cost that's involved? Like, did you have to pay any money, or was everything taken care of for you?
no, everything was taken care of by Concerns of Police Survivors, the Arizona chapter.
I guess that takes me to my next question. Where do you guys get your donations? Where does the money come from? Because you said you brought, it seemed like 20 people with you to D.C.
Right.
It's not
right.
cheap to take 20 people to D.C. for a week.
No, it's not. And actually, this last week, Arizona cops brought 40 survivors for the Huffman and the Rates families. They're all at no cost to them. They just have to get there. They just have to be able to make their reservations and get themselves there. And then all of their stuff is taken care of.
So when you say get themselves there, so they have to pay for their airfare?
No, Arizona cops actually reimburses them for their airfare.
So really, all they need to do is make the reservation
They just
themselves,
have to make
get the
the
time off
reservation.
work, and
Right.
Put that time aside so that they can go and attend, and everything is gratis.
Right, they're taken care of, and they are given resources there. There's a lot of things that happen at Police Week. It's very emotional, and sometimes families can break down. They can have conflict within themselves just because it's such a hard situation. You've dealt with such a loss, and people deal with it differently. And so we have counselors, we have people who can intervene and help families get through such the grief that comes up at Police Week, just because it's just so emotional to see.
Especially for you, I would
a
imagine
name on a wall.
Your loss was, your trip, let's say, was 6 months after your loss, so close.
Right. And some,
and as you said a moment ago, people deal with grief differently.
they do, and sometimes people are in different stages of grief, and they may not understand each other. And that's where the different counselors will come into play. COPS puts on survivor seminars at Police Week that teaches you everything of how to deal with grief in children, how to deal as a coworker. There's a lot of survivor guilt. Coworkers who survive, and they, say like with Sergeant Hobbs, where people who were right next to him who survived and he died. There's a lot of guilt that goes with that. There's a lot of different issues, and they have everything from how to deal with this very raw guilt or very raw grief to a more seasoned, quote unquote, seasoned survivor who is 20, even 30 years out. A survivor can go there. I can go to Police Week now, and they will have something for me there.
For the rest of your life?
For the rest of my life. I
And
can
the same
go.
invitation is open to your family as well?
Yes. So my parents can go to the in-laws retreat for the rest of their life, and just to deal with whatever issue they have.
And the children can be involved in activities as well?
Right.
You had mentioned camps for kids, and I believe there's an Outward Bound program as well?
Outward Bound. Yeah, my daughter Kayla has been to Outward Bound, and this year my son Sam, it'll be his first year, so they'll actually go together. It's an extreme wilderness experience.
Yeah, it is. I remember I wanted to go to that when I was younger. My parents were like, you didn't even want to go to Girl Scout camp. How are you going to do Outward Bound?
Right. It's very extreme. Very extreme. Yes.
Very rigorous.
Very, very much so. And my daughter didn't actually want to go the first year because it was so difficult.
Hard.
And
let's just say it straight
it's
up.
hard.
It's hard.
It is so hard. And I said, you got to try everything once. And I said, if you hate it, I'll never make you go again. So I signed her up, and she came back, and she was a different person. It did so much for her self-esteem, for her coping skills, life skills. It was an amazing program. She's been there 2 years, and both years did so much good for her.
How old is she now?
She's almost 17 now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So should be graduating high school, yes?
Next year.
Yeah,
Next
so
year
she's a junior now.
Yes, she's a junior.
And how have things how has she handled things since 2007?
She's grown a lot. My kids they weren't super young. They weren't babies, but they weren't old either. They were
It's
in
like
this
that middle,
in-between age where
they remember Dad.
they remember him, but then as they grow older, a lot of their actual memories fade. But the COPS programs have been so good for them. They talk to their friends all over the country all the time. They consider the friends that they see once a year at kids camp better friends than friends they see every day. They just they bond with them so much, and they have counselors that help them at every stage, because there are some kids that go to this COPS kids camp that maybe were infants, or even their mothers were pregnant with them when their dad died. And so there's even at the kids camp, even though they may be say my daughter has another kid who's 17 years old, that girl may have been 2 when her dad died, and Kayla was 10, but yet they have this bond that both of them lost this hero, and it's a very different death than even a death from cancer or a regular car accident or anything like that. Their parent is made to be larger than life. It's a community hero, and they a lot of times don't remember him. And so you have this iconic person that they have to memorialize in their life, but they barely remember him.
And as you said, the older they get, the more the memories fade, right?
Right. I mean, do you remember much of when you were 10?
No.
Yeah, I don't either. And of course, I didn't have a traumatic event happen, but your memories just fade. You remember pieces of things, but really what their memories become.
But the vividness of it is
Right.
gone.
Right. And their memories actually become stories that other people tell them.
Yeah, and that'll spark something, or you
Right.
begin to think that is your own memory, right? But it's someone else's
Right.
memories. I think I asked you a moment ago, where does the funding come from? And I think we got sidetracked.
There's a lot of different ways. There are a lot of private donors that just give directly to COPS Arizona, and we have a website. It's copsarizona.org, and you can directly donate there. We have a 5K Run to Remember. Each year, it's the Fallen Officer Memorial Run, and it raises money for specifically for the families that are going to Police Week. So this year's run specifically raised money for Huffman and Rates to go.
How much money does that 5K generally?
I think generally maybe anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000.
That's not a whole lot when you
It's
talk.
not a whole lot. No, it's not, considering the amount that you need
To take 40 people.
40 people, right? But
That's a drop in the bucket.
that money specifically goes to the immediate family, like the wife and children, or mother if there wasn't a spouse, mother and father. But our major source of funding is the fallen officer license plate. And I'm sure you've seen them around town. They're like a yellow plate, and they say fallen officer at the top. And some of them actually have the state. They look like the state flag. That's the older version of it. But the fallen officer plate is a specialty plate that you can get from motor vehicles.
And you can get that directly through motor vehicles.
Yeah, when you renew your registration at servicearizona.com,
That's a great website, isn't it?
Right.
It's
so easy. And you
It
just
is.
click on specialty plate, and you click on fallen officer plate, and it's $25 to get a specialty plate like that. And I think 19 of it goes to Concerns of Police Survivors. And that is where the majority of our funding for our activities comes from.
It's from the fallen officer plate.
Is from the fallen officer plate. So it's an excellent way that year after year, because as you renew it each year, that same $25 just goes into that, or the $19 goes into the fund, and it's a tremendous help.
That's pretty cool that $19 of that $25 goes directly to
Yes.
Concerns of Police Survivors. That's awesome.
Right.
So $19, and if you renew it every year.
Right. Every year that goes in.
That's awesome. So you can do that at servicearizona.com when it comes time for your license plate renewal. If you want to donate, though, online donations always accepted at copsarizona.org, correct?
Right.
Now, when you go to the website, does it explain any of the different programs that are available to survivors and their families? And
Yes.
does it give you like a whole history of COPS and how it came to be?
Right. Yeah. The Copsarizona.org website has all of the links to the National COPS page, which would tell you about all of the survivor programs. And it tells you about all the activities that we have. We put on a really nice retreat. Whenever I went to that meeting, how I talked to you about the meeting in 2008, and
Right.
it was just a meeting in a conference room. Since we've gotten our license plate funding, we're able to provide a much nicer environment for the survivor families to come in and do a Police Week orientation, and we can walk through it. It has become more of a retreat now, and they can bring in the whole family, and they can all be, I guess, coached on what will happen at Police Week. They'll have survivors like myself that can tell them what to expect. It's really very nice now. We can hold dinners like that. We have a nice Christmas party that we do for all of our survivors. I actually have a lot of the spouses come over my house and swim in the summer just to kind of prelude to kids camp. So it really connects us survivors, and it's that's what COPS is all about. It's survivors helping survivors.
So it's like a whole network.
It's a network. You can throw all the money in the world at me, or help, counseling even, but really I'm going to get a lot more help from someone who knows where I've been, someone who's walked in my shoes. There's just something about that, having that survivor connection, that is so powerful, and it literally helps rebuild shattered lives.
So when they talk about that, when they talk about police and the force and how the brotherhood, there truly is.
Yes,
and
it
then
really
there's a
is.
sisterhood among the wives as well.
There is, and they are a family. You will see officers go to Police Week that don't know any of the officers that have fallen. They may have never personally felt that loss, but they are such a brotherhood that they're going to go and honor their fallen brother. They feel like that was their loss because someone in that thin blue line fell.
Christie is the surviving spouse of a Casa Grande police officer. She has been involved with COPS for how long? Since 2008?
Yeah, pretty much ever since I got back from Police Week, I thought I need to be a part of this organization.
So you were so moved by what they did for you that
Yes.
you wanted to be there for others who may, as you said a moment ago, walk in your shoes.
Exactly. And after the camps, after my kids went to kids camp that first July of 2008, I couldn't believe what an amazing organization this was. And I thought I have to be a part of this to make sure that other survivors know about these resources.
I think that's what blows me away, is that these resources are available to you forever. Forever and ever and
Yes.
ever. Not just you as a spouse, as a surviving spouse, but also to your children
Right.
and to your family, your parents, your
Right.
in-laws. And that blows me away, because oftentimes, people always remember the immediacy after the tragedy.
Right.
But then as time goes by, you wonder if there's anything that's still around and still available to somebody who is still grieving or who is still feeling that loss. And I guess this kind of blows me away, that it's like, oh my gosh, here it is 7 years later, and you can still tap them for different things. Your children can still utilize some of the programs that are still available through COPS, and you are looking for other spouses to share the experience and to help with the grieving process and help lead them through that. That's awesome. I applaud you for that.
Right. Well, thank you. Yeah, it is an amazing resource, because my kids, they started out at COPS Kids Camp, and then now I have 2 that have graduated on to Outward Bound, and when they're 21, they will actually graduate to adult children, and they can go to adult children retreats their entire life.
And when they become, even when they're no longer children, so to speak, because it sounds weird when
They're
you say
actually
adult.
always called adult children
Really?
from there on out.
Okay,
Yeah,
so even when they're 40, they're still adult
they
children?
are still adult children, because you are an adult child of a fallen officer.
Now, Do you find that when you were at Police Week, I know we talked at the beginning of our conversation that Police Week just wrapped up yesterday in Washington, D.C., and we had two families from Arizona, the Rates family and the Hoffman families go, about 40 people total that went to Washington, D.C. to honor their fallen family members at Police Week. Do you find that there were more wives of fallen officers as opposed to husbands of fallen officers? Or is there a mix of both?
Oh yeah, there's definitely more men that are killed in the line of duty than women, but there definitely are women, and there are several spouses that go to the spouses camp every September that are men. And, hey, those two men get to be with 120 other women. They're like,
are they looking for a new spouse?
I know, yeah.
Kind of makes you wonder, going, this is like a singles getaway.
I know. You know what's funny is they don't really hook up with the people there, but it's just, I think it's, they're very well taken care of by all of us mother hens.
Oh, I bet they are. That's probably why they go, is more to get spoiled, right?
They do. And they are definitely in the minority, but there are women who die in the line of duty every year. And, of course, there are children that are at kids camp who lost their mother. There are far more that lost a father than a mother, but definitely there are both.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. It's been a journey. That it's never. We call it the road to hope. A lot of the different fundraisers that they do for cops carry that slogan, and I think that's. At the beginning, your life is just shattered. You don't even know what to do. The first year is a fog. You keep going because you have children and you have no other choice but to keep going. But now, almost 7 years out, I feel like I've rebuilt my life, and I can talk about Tate, and it brings more joy than tears. Except for right now, no. It brings more joy than tears, and I can remember him with great joy for the man that he was, and
the father,
that he was, the husband he was, the brother he was, and it brings me a lot of pride and joy.
You mentioned that when the decision came that you did the organ donation.
Yeah.
Do you think back of how many lives he has saved through his?
Yeah, actually, I have met a couple of them.
Have you really?
Yes, I have.
What kind of experience was that? I bet
it
that
was amazing.
I bet that was mind-blowing, huh?
It was amazing. We go to kids camp in Wisconsin, and one of the recipients of his kidney lives in Wisconsin, literally around the corner from this camp.
How freaky is that?
And I got a letter, because they don't tell you who the recipients are.
Right.
There's actually the transplant center and the donor network are two in between people, in between you and the recipient. And so in order for the recipient to know who the donor is, the donor has to send out a letter saying it's okay to contact you. So I sent out 4 letters. There were 4 different recipients. And one, they said, we think it's best that you don't meet this family. And I said, okay, I'm going to have to trust your judgment on that one. And so they sent 3. And it took probably a year before I heard from anyone. And right after we got back from camp, I got this letter from Wisconsin. I thought, who sent me a letter from Wisconsin? Maybe someone from the camp. And it was this kidney recipient telling me his story of how he had received this kidney. And of course, I contacted him. They had a phone number, and I called him right away. And I said, I cannot believe I was literally 5 miles from you a week ago. And so the next year, we had him come to the camp, and we met them, and that was amazing. And then about probably a year later, one of the officers from the police department says, I need to come by your house right away. It's okay. That's never good.
Yeah.
And so
do you think back about?
Yeah, she came by and she said, Christie, the guy who has Tate's heart came by the police station.
Stop.
I said, are you kidding me? And she said, yeah, but he doesn't want you to feel weird or anything. So he thought maybe you and I and him and the families can go to dinner. And so we did, and I've had a great relationship with him and his family since then. They've come we do a fundraiser every year for a scholarship fund that I have for my husband at the community college, and he's come to the motorcycle run a couple of years, and he's always been a great support with that. I've connected with his kids, and it's amazing. I listened to his heart. That was just outrageous. Listening to Tate's heart in someone else's body was just
surreal.
Yeah, it was surreal. But he's a wonderful man, and he has a wonderful family, and they've supported the different causes that we've had in Tate's name, and
that's cool. Well,
amazing.
How can somebody listening today? You said you have different things like scholarship funds and stuff, all in Tate's name. How can somebody listening today who's been moved by your story and maybe wants to donate something, how can they find out more about any of the opportunities to help?
For us specifically, I do have the Sergeant Tate Lynch Foundation. And
is there a website?
I think it's just Sergeant Tate Lynch Foundation.com, maybe. .com or .org. I don't actually remember. But yeah, there is a...
I'm sure if we Google it, we'll find it.
Yeah, if you Googled it, I'm sure you'd find it. Yeah, Sergeant Tate Lynch Foundation. And we have a scholarship set up at Central Arizona College, and you can donate directly through Pinal County for that. And we also we help with various local things, like when they take the... I don't know, what do they call it? Where the shop with a cop, and
the whenever different holiday programs.
Different holiday programs, we'll donate money to those to help some of the underprivileged families, and there's some youth programs through the schools that we donate to.
Gotcha. And of course, Copsarizona.org.
Copsarizona.org, yeah.
Well, you know what? Your story and your attitude and just everything about you is just wonderful. Thank you so much for stopping in to share with us. You're an amazing lady, much tougher and stronger than I think I would be. But just thank you so much for sharing your story with us this morning. We thank you. We wish you nothing but the best for you and your family. Copsarizona.org, Concerns of Police Survivors. That is the name of the organization. Go check them out today. And when it's time for you to renew your license plate, you might want to take those fallen officer plates, because $19 of the renewal fee will go to fund some of the wonderful programs and camps that Cops Arizona does. So check it out today, Copsarizona.org.